a small republic, it grows into the greatest empire ever known, lasting for over 600 years. At its height, it stretches from London to Baghdad, projecting its power with the first professional army and creating the model of Western civilization. And yet, when the empire begins to falter, it collapses with shocking speed. It takes only 100 years for the imperial edifice of Rome to vanish like smoke, swept away by the barbarian invasions. How did it happen? It is late in the 2nd century BC, 100 years before the crucifixion of Christ, a decade before the birth of Julius Caesar. Rome is facing a transition, one that will change its fundamental character forever. It comes at a time of conquest.
Rome has come off 150 years of really successful foreign expansion. They've defeated Carthage, their great enemy across the Mediterranean Sea in Africa, and they've begun to expand to the north, and they've made big conquests that are hard to keep in Spain.
But even as the Romans are carving out their place in the world through brutal conquest, the Republic faces a cataclysmic event that will eventually force the Romans to abandon the rule of the Senate for the absolute dictatorship of an emperor. It begins with the First Barbarian War. By 113 BC, Rome has become master of the entire Mediterranean basin, but with new lands come new enemies.
The Romans know that there are more people farther away, especially to the north, and that these people are, if anything, even more formidable than the armies they've defeated before, and they're worried about those people coming into Italy.
Beyond the borders of Roman civilization, the soldiers face an unfamiliar breed of warrior. They call them barbarians, a word meaning foreign and crude.
Anybody that didn't follow classical customs, speak classical languages, Latin or Greek, was considered to be very different, other, barbarian. And Rome simply regarded them as much less capable, much less civilized than themselves.
Only the rugged Alpine mountain range keeps the northern barbarians at bay.
The Alps mountain chain at the top of Italy is like in the bottle that keeps the bad guys away from the Roman point of view, and the Romans don't control that cork. And so they know that it could pop out at any time and the enemy could come pouring into Italy, or at least that's their fear.
Against this growing barbarian menace stands the Roman army, a volunteer militia which prides itself on being well-ordered, well-trained, and well-armed.
An individual Roman soldier would be wearing metal and leather armor, a helmet, something to protect his chest. All of this armor together could weigh as much as 60 or 70 pounds, half his body weight.
The burden of Rome's expansion falls squarely on the shoulders of these battle-hardened men. But back in the capital, it's the wealthy government officials who reap the benefits. Rome is not an empire yet, but a republic ruled by the Senate. At the top of the political ladder are two elected officers known as consuls.
They were the highest civilian and military officials in Rome. Above all, their responsibility was to lead the army, because national security came first. But they were also, because of their tremendous prominence, very important in setting the agenda for politics, for legislation, for reform.
Though the Roman Republic embraces democratic ideals, all men are not created equal. Soldiers may win the battles for Rome, but they dare not hope to achieve the position of consul. The highest office is reserved for members of Rome's most important families, like Gnaeus Papirius Carbo.
A very small number of families dominated the elections to become consul. This is part of the belief that Rome really needed the kind of honor that came from a long, distinguished family history.
Now, as Rome expands, this honor is no longer based on merit, but on money.
What's happening in Rome is, as Rome conquers more territory, more wealth is going to flow into the city. And there's a sense that wealth is going to demoralize the citizen body and the aristocracy both. That as wealth becomes more and more powerful in Roman society, more and more enticing, that this is going to infiltrate its way into the political process.
By spreading around his wealth, Carbo can buy his place as consul.
In terms of campaigning, one of the things that you'll find as you go on later in the Republic is the system becomes extremely corrupt. You have people bestowing all sorts of largesse, any sort of little kind of gifts or remuneration in order to get your vote.
But in the north, a dangerous new tribe, the Cimbri, is on the move. From their home in northern Europe, they journey south toward Roman territory. Completely uncivilized, the Cimbri radiate terror, according to the famous ancient biographer Plutarch.
They were believed to be German tribes based on their great size, the light blue color of their eyes, and the fact that their name, Cimbri, is the German nickname for plunderers.
Led by the great warlord Boiorix, the horde leaves a smoking trail of destruction in its wake.
They were characteristic Iron Age peoples. We don't really know exactly what it is they were after. They may have been moving in order to attack and invade provinces that were becoming wealthy through trade with Rome. They may have simply been coming to seek their fortunes in what they perceived as a richer land near the Mediterranean.
The Cimbri aren't the only ones lured by Rome's growing wealth. On the way south, two more barbarian tribes join them, the Teutones and Ambrones. The combined barbarian armies are heading straight for an alpine pass into Roman territory, guarded by the simple villagers of Noricum. Though Noricum is not a Roman territory, its proximity to the Roman border ties its people closely to the Republic.
Noricum is the area that we would say today is essentially Austria. The people who live there are the Norici, and therefore the territory is named after them. The people there, the Norici, controlled the Alpine passes.
Romans also rely on the Noricans for trade, as their skills working in precious metals and iron are well known.
What the Noricans actually have available in the way of raw materials is gold, silver, and salt. Mineable salt in the Alps is a major industry. So the Romans truly needed large quantities of salt for preservative, and they had to have that, and they had to have it all the time.
The Norican villages provide an irresistible target to the merciless Cimbri warriors. Hungry for loot, they are rapacious and heavily armed for the raid.
By the period we're talking about, the 2nd and 1st centuries BC, the Cimbri had very effective swords, spears, shields, helmets are rarer, but they were fully equipped with very able kinds of weapons.
But the barbarians are after more than the Noricans' wealth.
The northern barbarians who were migrating, what they wanted above all was land. They weren't there to raid and leave, they wanted to live next to the Romans.
The craftsmen of Noricum stand no chance against the warriors of the north. The Noricans send an emissary to their allies in the Roman Senate, begging for help against the vicious Cimbri invaders. They seek out the aristocrat Carbo, whose politicking has finally paid off. He now holds the post of consul, the most prestigious office in Rome. Carbo orders his aide to begin preparations for war. He has just 1 year to win the glory and riches that come from battle.
We're talking about needing to show the qualities of leadership through a display of manliness. And a display of manliness meant success on the battlefield. Generals not only feathered the nest of themselves and their families, but of all their supporters.
Carbo takes the challenge, leading his troops to Noricum. Despite an utter lack of experience in the ways of war, he is eager to prove that he is more than just a wealthy senator. He arrives in Noricum, backed by the men of the Roman army. After a century of victories, they exude confidence.
The Cimbri claimed they didn't know that they were in territory that they shouldn't have been in. They sent ambassadors.
The barbarians have never seen such a well-equipped and disciplined force. The warlord Boiryx tells Carbo his people only wish to return home peacefully. Carbo agrees to let them go. But there is little glory in a truce. The Roman general devises a plan to force the victory he so badly needs.
Carbo pretended that he was going to negotiate, and then he sent his troops on a shortcut to attack the Cimbri before the ambassadors could get back, thinking that his sneak attack would work.
Carbo's plan backfires.
The Roman commander Carbo outfoxed this group called the Cimbri, but he did it in a way that smelled of disgrace.
A few of the Cimbrian ambassadors survived to carry a tale of treachery back to the barbarian camp. Furious, the barbarians swear they will never leave until they exact bloody revenge. In 113 BC, the Roman general Carbo parleys for peace with violent barbarians, the Cimbri. Then he turns around and murders their ambassadors. His treachery enrages the barbarians, who value honor above all else. Vowing to avenge their fallen comrades, the Cimbri strike back with swift and sudden fury. Classical biographer Plutarch.
Their courage and daring were irresistible. They rushed into battle with the speed of a raging fire. Nothing could stand up to them.
Led by two warlords, Boiryx of the Cimbri and Teutobod of the Teutones, the barbarians advance in inexhaustible waves.
The archaeology tells us that they had very good weapons, not inferior to Romans. It tells us that they had real military organization with infantry troops, with officer corps. So we can tell quite a bit. Certainly we can tell much more than the Romans seemed to understand until it was too late.
Consul Carbo suddenly finds himself far from the comfort and privilege of Roman politics. Here, the language of power is spoken in steel and blood. As consul, chief war magistrate, he fails miserably.
Because the chief war magistrate is only out there for a year, it's very frequently amateur hour out there on the field of battle. So you end up with very frequently inept leadership in a very important position, and on occasion results in disaster for the Romans.